origins of the church, musicians and vocalists have played a pivotal part of the church service and set the tone for praise and worship. But what happens when a musician wants to take their talents outside of the church? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Musicians playing both sides.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa, and thank you for being part and viewing the Big E, the elephant in the room. I am extremely excited and extremely honored to have some phenomenal guests on this episode. We have been working behind the scenes, and it is truly an honor to really talk about this topic that we will be discussing today. So our topic we will be discussing is musicians playing both sides of the fence, secular and Christian market. So this has also have been such a topic that everyone has been discussing for years. You know, what kind of music should I be allowed to play in the church? What should I be able to play if I decide to go out and play for secular artists? So this is the time to really, truly get to the groundwork to really see what these artists and these musicians and vocalists really deal with on a day-to-day basis. So let me welcome these wonderful guests. We have Miss Brandy Sutton, we have Mr. James Davis, and Miss Natalie Reagan. Now, these wonderful, wonderful guests, I'm going to just allow them to tell me and tell you briefly about their background and their musical talents that God has truly gifted them with. So, Miss Brandy Sutton, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am an opera singer. I most of the time call myself just a singer. I grew up singing gospel and singing in the church. Obviously, I started at church. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist in the small community of Huntsville, Alabama, and Oakwood College. And but now I sing opera and symphony orchestra gigs as well, full time. And but I still sing at church. So that's a nutshell.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being part of this platform. And we're going to go directly next to Miss Natalie Reagan. Please tell me, the audience, a little bit about your background and about your musician talent.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. My name is Natalie Reagan. I'm an Atlanta native. I actually attended Atlanta Public Schools for college. I went to the University of Georgia. I have a bachelor's degree in middle school education, language arts, and social studies. I wanted something to fall back on in case music didn't work out. As of now, I'm a professional musician, and that's what I've been doing since I was probably 13.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. And we're going to go right to Mr. James Davis. If you can tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Melissa, thanks so much for having me, and it's an honor to be on with Brandy and Natalie today. I am a keyboardist first. I play piano, organ, do a little bit of singing. Don't profess to be a singer though, but I grew up as Brandy and Natalie were saying. I also grew up in the church, grew up playing in church. Have played in church almost all my life. I have held director of music / minister of music positions in churches, but I play a lot of different styles and types of music. I've also held, music director positions for secular artists, as well as Christian artists. So that's a little bit about what
I thank you again. I just want to pinpoint two things out. First off, Brandy as well as James, y'all play and have sang vocally for my parents' church at Ephesus, Seventh-day Adventist Church in Harlem, New York. And Natalie, you have actually played consecutively at Berean Seventh-day Adventist Church in Atlanta, and my uncle actually is a member. So this is like kind of full circle to finally never got to directly meet you guys. So this is fully a full circle to know, because I know personally my dad talks highly about you, Brandy, on your personal vocal blessings that God has given you. And I see you, James, when I'm with my mom, you're at that organ, just completely putting that church into a silent piece. So I truly thank you, and as well as Natalie. So we thank you so much for being part of this platform today. So I'm just going to jump right into the questions. So as we discussed, we're going to be talking about musicians playing both sides. So the first question I have, and whoever would like to go first, how do you feel musicians and vocalists play both sides of the fence of Christian and secular? How do you really feel about taking on that task? And what experiences have you dealt with playing both sides, both from Christian as well as secular?
I definitely don't want to answer first. I know what I'm going to say, but I want to hear what somebody else says.
I'm going to go off track, but I'll make it short and sweet. For me, I would just say I've learned just the emotions of people. I've learned how to simplify. I've learned how to make gospel may be a little more extreme as far as intricacies than maybe R&B. That in the end of the day, for me, I just try to be a light wherever I am. But it's just, it feels good to know that people can feel what I'm doing, what I'm playing, what I'm producing. The emotion, that's become a constant for me. You know, they're gonna probably delve into some other areas, but I'll stay above water because you're trying to get me in trouble, Melissa.
No. This is the big E, the elephant in the room. So this is let it all out. This is where you speak your truth.
Well,
and this is
no, it's music. It's so big and broad yet simple. Mm-hmm. I just love the emotions from the people. I just done it. And so here it is. Funny you said that. Actually, I just did a concert. I was the artist, this particular event, for church. Church I used to be the musical director for. And it was for their women's conference. And it was a Friday night and they wanted to party. So it was all secular music. So that was interesting. I had some Seventh-day Adventist singers. One of them was really an avid, you all understand, it was really avid 7 days. So she was like, well, what time are we going up? Will the sun be down? I forgot. I said 8:49. We're the headliner. So I had to replace her because she was avid Seventh-day Adventist. Beautiful voice, but we had to do something else. So that was interesting to make the adjustment and just thinking lyrically, like, okay, we can't do that song. Can't do Tina Turner. What's Love Got to Do with It? But we can do Shaka Khan. That's so for me, it's just adjusting and knowing we call it playing the room, knowing the room. So that's all I have for you. Don't get me in trouble.
No. So, Brandy, do you have any input on that?
Yes, I do. So, I remember growing up and singing for church all the time. And even after realizing that I had a classical instrument and that I could, go that direction, the more I would sing at church, because before I was able to really have a career, church is what kept me going. That's what helped me survive, was singing at church. So I'm always, forever grateful for it. But I remember people always saying, always sing for the Lord, always sing for the Lord. And I used to always immediately assume that means don't sing anything other than, sacred music.
Mm.
But my career was going in a direction of obviously singing opera, which was not considered sacred music. So I would question, well, does that mean I'm not going to be singing for the Lord if I'm singing in an opera? But I wasn't convicted of that. So after a while, it kind of got on my nerves to hear that. Even though I know that it's not meant with malice, I know that people only mean well when they say that, but sometimes you really have to think about what you're saying before you say it, because I feel that we are missing a bigger picture off GP in so many avenues of, the religion. We're missing a much bigger picture. And I think it's mainly because of ignorance, because we just don't know. I remember one time, I think it was the year that my father passed, I was going to sing my first Bess in Porgy and Bess in Mexico City at this great theater, the Palacio de Bellas Artes, which is a very famous theater. And right before I went to Mexico City, I had to sing for a convocation for Northern California's conference. And a pastor who was assigned to drive me around on the way to the airport, he said, you should only sing for the Lord because, if you sing secular music, you may not be successful. And I had a friend who was singing jazz music as well as singing in the church. And now he's in a wheelchair. His wife left him. His kids don't talk to him anymore. And it was basically to scare me into, this is what's going to happen to you, or your life is going to end up in shambles, or this is why his life is now the way it is because he decided to sing jazz music as opposed to Christian music. So when I got to Mexico City, the promoter who brought us there, she said, could you all please pray for my nephew? Because this was the time in 2014 where Israel and Gaza were fighting, and her nephew was from Israel, and he had just turned 18. And as soon as they turn 18 in that country, they have to go off to war. So she said, please pray for him. And something so clearly said to me, pull that lady aside and pray for her nephew with her. And I'm fighting the voice like, oh, no, she's busy and I'm shy. I didn't really want to do that. I was a little nervous about, doing my witnessing. And the voice kept telling me, and I never did it, but God is still going to get done what he wants to get done, what God wants to get done, whether you obey or not. And what I did was I went to my room and I had intercessory prayer for her nephew that night. The next morning I saw her and she said, I told her that I prayed for him, and she said, come here, give me a hug. I said, what happened? She said, I spoke to my brother today and my nephew has been pulled out on the sidelines just for a break. So I know it was because of your prayers. The next day, she came to me again and said, give me a hug. I've been crying all day. My nephew has been completely removed from the war and he does not have to go back at all. She said, it is because of your prayers. I know that was nothing but the hand of God. And something said to me, this is why you're here. Now, if I had said, I'm not going to do this gig because it's on Friday night, I have to rehearse on Saturdays, how else would I have been there?
To be there.
Have this experience to pray for this lady and her nephew.
Wow.
Janice Chandler said to me, God did not give me my voice to sit up in a pew somewhere, but to share it with the world.
Yes.
So it's called, if it's playing both sides that you want to consider it, then call it what you need to call it. But I'm going to do what I've been called to do.
And that's truly a testimony to let you know, you don't want to hide the gift that God has given you. You want to, and it could be from any form. And that was really a confirmation for yourself to let you know that you are doing what God asked you to do. Indeed. So I truly thank you for, expressing that and letting us know. So before we go back to James, I do have to take a commercial break. So we are going to take a quick commercial break and hear from our sponsor, and we will be right back.
We know that God has called you to a mission, but sometimes you need a little help getting there. At the Center for Clergy and Church Support, we strive to encourage, empower, and equip ministries and nonprofit organizations to do all that God has called them to do. We handle basic legal issues, conduct administrative and financial audits, and strengthen organizations in community engagement and capacity building. Let us help your ministry or nonprofit in advancing the kingdom of God. Visit clergycenter.org for more information.
Thank you, everyone, for staying tuned and being part of this episode, The Big E, the elephant in the room. We are talking about musicians playing both sides, secular as well as Christian markets. We just heard a wonderful testimony and story from Miss Brandy Sutton, and we are going to jump over to James. Can you bring some insight of your experience and what God has really shown you playing both sides from Christian and secular market?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for bringing up this topic, because it is something that it is a hot topic, and it's sort of taboo, at least in Black church. But if we really think about it, this whole notion of playing both sides and secular versus sacred, it's been around for a long time, really, hasn't it? You know, I thought about people like Kirk Franklin, you know, Whitney Houston, Aretha, you know, even earlier than that, Sam Cooke, just all kind of people, right? You know, the first gospel song proper that we call a gospel song, right, or one of, is Precious Lord. That was written by Thomas Dorsey, who was a blues musician. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if these categories of sacred and secular are so disjoint or mutually exclusive. I don't think it's that cut and dry. You know what I mean? I think that there's much more overlap than we think, or that we want to acknowledge.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? You know, and yes, we are spiritual beings. You know, we are believers. We are people of faith, but we do exist in a natural world and in a physical world. And every profession is going to have some kind of interaction with the natural world. So if I'm calling myself a musician, it's almost impossible for there to not be any overlap with quote unquote secular music or music of the world, because it's at the end of the day, music is music is music, you know, and this sacred and secular have you know, have stood side by side since the beginning of time. You know, even back to slavery days with our community in America. Yes, there's the Negro spiritual that came out of the slave experience, but there's also secular songs as well. There's work songs, there's sorrow songs. So these things have always coexisted, and I'm just not so sure that we should continue to fortify these barriers, you know, that we like to artificially put up, you know, and saying, you know, if you're a Christian, then you should do this and only do that. And, you know, or if you're a believer, then you should only do this and do that. I mean, of course, you can't just give people carte blanche. You know, there are certain, you know, art forms and genres with, you know, explicit lyrics, you know, misogynistic lyrics and, you know, things that, you know, glorify gang activity and violence and stuff like that. You know, we're not talking about that. But, you know, who's to say that a song like We Are the World, right? It's not divinely inspired, you know, or what the world needs now is love. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's I think it's just going to take a change of thought and a change of thinking for the Black church.
Perspective.
But maybe this is the start of that conversation.
Yes, that's why we are here. That is why we are here. So I'm going to jump into a question. I know everybody is probably going to want to hear from you on this one. Do you think the church takes musicians for granted in the gifts that God has given you? Not everybody speak at once now.
Well, you know what? When I was growing up at Oakwood, I feel like every time somebody got up to sing, it was always exceptionally good. But because it was all that I heard, I didn't know anything else until I left and was exposed to others. And so I was spoiled in that regard. And I think maybe the church was as well. You know, I did have someone tell me at a church one time that I should not sing for money, that it should always be for free. When I'm singing in church, I should always be donating my gift. So I guess maybe in that regard, if you're kind of used to it and you're spoiled and it's like you don't even really realize what goes on behind the scenes, again, ignorance. If you don't know, you know, you shouldn't speak on what you don't know or speak about something you don't know of, but people do it all the time. Bless their hearts. But I think, yes, they do take advantage. But there are a lot of places that don't. I think it's individual, because there are a lot of churches that will treat me like gold if I come to sing just for their service. So it just depends, but it does exist.
Okay. Do you have any input, Natalie or James, on that question?
I'd say the church, I'm not sure, but I know, as she stated, you know, church to church, denomination to denomination. Sure, maybe not. Like for me, I've been blessed to play the ministries. I don't believe they took. Then I've been blessed. However, you know, yeah, of course you're gonna run into, depending on, I don't know, demographics, you're gonna run into people who traditionally they're not used to, oh, you're doing both, or you're not just, you know, and then you have people who are more evolved. I wouldn't just lock everybody in and call it the church. Bob, like I just said, that concert I was referring to was 2 Fridays ago. Hence the Sabbath situation. That was 2 Fridays ago. And I would say that church is pretty evolved. And I can't put them in the same category with another church who would take me for granted. So I don't, you know, I think it varies.
Any insight, James?
If I could just add to that, true. Not every church takes musicians for granted, but as a whole, I think so. I think I think the Black church they're just really comfortable and used to always having, you know, just an abundance of talent. We're just talented people anyway, you know, Black folk, but especially, you know, most Black churches are just a showcase for just raw, natural talent.
Yes.
And we're so comfortable and complacent in that sometimes, as the Black Church Universal, we can sort of expect or think we can demand for musicians and singers to just freely give of their time and talent, you know. And I think music is a sort of thing, and probably the arts period, but definitely music, to where there's so much of a, or there's the prerequisite, maybe I should say, of having natural talent, you know, God-given talent, that people forget that, yes, while we are endowed with certain gifts, we also had to put in the work to cultivate that talent. And I think that's the part that gets lost on a lot of people. I am well aware that I am gifted of God. You know, Brandy is gifted to sing. Natalie is gifted to sing, but they have put in the work. You know, what people don't see is the voice lessons, the coachings, you know, People have gone to school and gotten degrees and gone into student loan debt, perfecting their craft. And I think we don't always look at it like that. It's just Brandy just wake up and sing like that. Natalie can roll out of bed and she just gonna come in here and just slay us. And not really realizing, okay, this person has to employ some kind of technique.
Yeah.
They gotta put in the work. Faith without works is dead. We like to, to quote that scripture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what that compensation is, when a church shows a financial appreciation to a musician or a singer, what you are compensating that person is the work that they put into cultivating their talent.
Mm-hmm. So with that, you just said, do you think, or how should churches do better in supporting musicians? What should they do better? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, they should. I think the first thing is to not expect or feel entitled that people should sing and play for free.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to. I don't want to make it seem like well, every time I play in church I need to be getting a check, or every time I sing. That's not what we're saying either. If I decide, if a person decides, that this offering will be a gift, and that's up to that person, and that's between that person and their God.
Mm-hmm.
But that expectation, that sense of entitlement, that whole thing of, I think Brandy said a few minutes ago, somebody told you, you should always sing in church for free. That's a sense of entitlement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Natalie, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I was just admiring, I guess we could say, like how I guess all of us I guess your backgrounds may be similar, just the different various backgrounds in our experience. I was just listening, I wasn't trying to interrupt. It was just like, I just know we had different experiences, so it's just good to other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And it also shows, I think.
What?
No, I was going to say it also shows confirmation of probably what you have been experiencing, to know that you're not alone.
That, and I was thinking like, well, I have different experiences. Like I was getting paid at a young age. I mean, I told my mom they were breaking child labor laws. I'm going to leave the church names out of it for now. I was like, my pay hasn't changed, and I've picked up like 5 choirs. So, but anyway, but I don't know if I've been in situations that I can just remember where they would come play for free. I don't recall. Maybe I blocked it out, but generally, been blessed on that side. I guess.
So, Ms. Brandy, do you have any insight on that question? Should churches, how can they support the musicians better? We have a few more minutes. Do you have any insight on that?
I agree with Jim, where he was saying that they just shouldn't expect, or feel entitled. And maybe if we could put up some bad singing enough weeks in a row, then they'll be like, we'll pay for better. Just get better, But I also think that the church is doing a lot better. I think with myself, because people see what I do in addition to singing at church, and they see me trying to make it, and they want to be supportive. I think that helps. Once they know, I think if we just educate them and let them know, like what Jim said, they don't know about the voice lessons and everything else that goes into what we put up. They just see us come on the stage and do what we do. They don't know behind the scenes. So I think if they would just be open to being educated about that, it could get better. But I do see it getting better now with change of administration too.
Well, that's tremendously well, and I truly thank you guys for your insights. I wish we can dive in a little bit more, but we just want to thank you so much for being the panel guest for the Big E, the elephant in the room, and viewers and subscribers, and and everyone that has been listening to the Big E and the Elephant in the Room for the last going into our second season. I just want to remind our viewers and supporters to please make sure that you subscribe, like, and share this platform. This platform is needed. People need to hear real changes that need to take place in the church, or just start the communication. So we just again thank you, Miss Brandy Sutton, Mr. James Davis, and Miss Natalie Reagan for being part of the Big E, the elephant in the room, where we speak about the unspeakable.